Welcome. We gathered here on this rather hot but beautiful summer afternoon to discuss the figure of producer in the field of performing arts. I will start with introducing myself, just to get it out of the way. So my name is Edgaras Klivis, and I work as professor at Vytauto University, theater studies department. I also work recently as an artistic director in National Kauno Drama Theater, and I will be the moderator. This discussion was initiated by three partners, including Kaunas Chamber Theatre, where we are at the moment, Kaunas European Capital of Culture 2022, and Performing Arts Festival Contempo. We're here to discuss the meaning, the importance, and the function of producer in the field of contemporary performing arts and theatre. And we have producers here from different countries and of different generations, of different experiences. And I would like to ask you first to introduce yourself in brief and to tell us what is your experience in creative producing at the moment. Let us start maybe with Paulina.
Okay, so I'm Paulina. I'm organizing the festival in Kaunas, Namas number X. And the festival of not traditional theater is the immersive and site-specific theater festival. And also I'm in scenography, so also working in the theater field as a scenographer and organizer.
I'm Di Robson. I'm the international producer for Strabos and Van Rijswijk, whose opera Signal opens tonight. Hurrah! And I have just finished working with a contemporary circus company that I developed over 7 years in the UK, but I've just recently finished with them, and I have a solo performer working on a show called Le Pain. He's French, so I produce all different kinds of things, whatever I like, and I've done it for a long time.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gilardino. I am a freelance producer and curator based in Bologna. I am here at the festival with one of the artists I work with, Alessandro Sciarroni, presenting Save the Last Dance for Me. And at the moment, and since quite a few years, I work with Alessandro as a producer with an Italian theatre group called Motus. With a small editorial adventure that I started with two colleagues called Samara Editions Performances by Post, where we commission performances to be sent by post, with a small challenge that you can a bit stretch what we can consider a performative experience. And I'm part of the curatorial team of a small festival in Norway called Ostscena, in a beautiful fjord in the city of Ålesund. I also teach and mentor. That's it.
Hello, my name is Ogne Žukauskaitė. I'm new in this field. I'm a participant of Young Producers Education Program, PRODIUSAI COLAB, and it's just 2 years in producing. And I organized the Sleep Festival, MOVS, Sleep Metamorphosis. It was a small festival, my first job.
Hello, I'm Martina, and I'm also participating in this education program for young producers. And currently I'm working with an international project with ESH 2022. With director Larissa Faber on musical play Good Girls.
Okay. Thank you. So let us start our discussion now, right, really. I think the prevalent image of a producer portray him or her as somebody who accumulates and distributes money. as opposed to the artists who initiate and develop the artistic ideas and creative ideas. By this logic, the shifters and the shapers of culture are artists, and producers are employees then hired to do a certain job, like management. And of course, fundraising, production development, management are still important parts of contemporary producers, of what contemporary producers do. However, in the recent 25 years or so, maybe a little bit less in Lithuania, the concept of creative producers is coming up, keeps coming up, pointing to the fact that an increasing part of contemporary theatrical culture is shaped by creative ideas of the producers rather than artists, so, who then often hire artists to do a certain job. I look at Paulina, for example. She has, as a producer, she had this unique and wonderful idea of organizing a theater festival in one house. Each year it is a different house, so she and her team would take some isolated house and would kind of give it new, animate the whole building with theater performances. So the creative idea comes from the producer actually in this point. I would like to ask you all, what is the ratio of creative decision making and this kind of nitty-gritty work of project management in your practice? What is the ratio? Okay. Another question is, how do you deal with artists who still also want to be the initiators of creative ideas, the directors, the playwrights, the choreographers in your projects? As an artistic director of National Drama Theatre, I know very well, when the artists come, they have this, I want the big stage, 30 actors, Shakespeare. No, you will have 5 actors, most small hall, young adults production. Let's start with that. So there is always some kind of friction and antagonism between producers then and artists. And my third question, looking at the theatrical culture in your country, UK, Italy, to what extent do you think it is shaped by independent creative producers rather than institutions and institutionalized artists? Okay.
Completely.
I know it's a bunch of questions. I can repeat that. You can choose.
Okay, I can go if that's fine for everybody. Not sure I will remember everything, but you will help me. The way I work, let's focus on the work with Alessandro, as we are here with this project. The way I work with him, it's quite specific because we have been working together for 20 years. We were best friends at the university, so it started like a game somehow. And I still like to cherish this somehow playful spirit in our collaboration. We worked together for 10 years for a theater group, he's being an actor and me being a producer. And then I started to play with his work as an author. We didn't expect to still work together for such a long time. When he asked me to join the project, he said, I'm not asking a marriage, just a couple of gigs. It happened 12 years ago. But in terms of role and responsibility, it's very specific what I do. We start to talk together when he has an idea. And sometimes I also sense an idea before it arrives. I don't know how it happens. I think it is trust and a lot of years together. And then I try to find the way, the partners, the money, to make it happen. This, for me, it's producing and it's curating. I sometimes I can't really, my practice as curator sometimes nourishes the other and the other way around. But it has to do, it's not only, like, say, to sort out practical things. I think it has to do a lot with building a field of trust and pleasure for the whole team, and to be able to listen, and sometimes put in concept or idea or confidence when I feel it's needed. Sometimes this can mean, to not to stalk, but to really be after a partner to find the resources. But I think, like, it also to the ability to understand, for example, which would be beyond money the right partner in crime for each project. This, I think, it's at least for me, it's something that I find important in my practice, and also to be able to understand when someone other agenda is putting on the project. You know, to really listen to the needs of the project, and sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it needs time. We were talking before in Italy not to ask for public money. So we are an independent group, and it's a team composed by all freelancers, but has also other engagements. But this also allows the freedom. It's more risky, it's more hard work, but it's sometimes precarious, even if it is, Alessandro is quite a well-known artist. But it leaves also the freedom to everybody to have different experience that nourishes the work that we do together, and also to Alessandro, if he wants to stop for 1.5 years because he doesn't have the need, the urgency to do something, that's fine for everybody, you know. So, like, the way we choose to work is okay, he has an idea, let's try to make this happen. And in terms of like the Italian scene, I would say, I personally, this is a very personal position, but I feel and think that the most interesting realities in Italy are quite out from the traditional scene, both in terms of curatorial projects and in terms of artistic practices. We have a lot of projects that come out as independent, auto-produced, autodidact, auto whatever, and I think in Italy there is a very vibrant and super interesting scene, which I am every time impressed of, because it comes from basically a desert in terms of support, knowledge, and a lot of things, but you need time to discover it, because it can happen really in the backyards of places. There have been some very interesting experiments with professionals from the independent scene getting institutional positions, and I'm very sad to say publicly that they ended very bad. Like, I'm thinking, for example, to the direction of Francesca Corona, who now is the director of Festival of Autumn in Paris, who did an amazing project in Teatro India, in London, sorry, in Roma, which is part of one of the 5 national theatres we have in Italy. So it was one of the first time someone from the independent scene got such a position. And the project had huge political backlash, so it ended. So I think it's quite a hidden but very rich scene.
Okay, which makes you a producer who knows these hidden things a very important at this point, like something an artist needs to have.
Yeah. But I think that this is again very personal. But I think that like the way I am able to do this, it's quite specific. I work only with 2 artists since many years, and it's not only about having a passion for the artistic research they are doing and for them as a human being, because I'm not able to split this. But also, like, about the trust we built, and about also the team. I think that there was a question, I think, from you about also what we consider a success, somehow. And I think it is to take the luxury also to choose the people we are working with, not only in terms of artists, in terms of the crew that each project brings in.
Okay.
I can endorse pretty much everything
Please.
that's been said. I mean, I've been doing my job for a very long time, and I stumbled into this job quite accidentally when I was still at university, and I came from somewhere. I come from New Zealand, and I came from somewhere where there was nothing, not even a cinema. There was just a few houses. So when I first saw a sort of experimental theatre show, my brain exploded, and that was it. And I just kept going one way or another. I didn't even sort of realise what I was doing. And so over a career of 40 plus years, I've met a lot of people and seen a lot of places, and I've done a lot of things. But I think what you're talking about, and for me the thrill of working in live performance, I've produced films and I've published books and I make festivals and blah, blah. But the thrill of live performance is about collaboration. And the collaboration extends across all aspects of making of a production, from who's doing it to who's in it, including the crew, the designers, the directors. All of those people are really fundamental to making a successful production. And over the years, of course, I've accumulated people I want to work with, and I've been lucky. I've worked with lots of truly fabulous people. And more recently, about 8 years ago, I met 3 young men who were just graduating from the circus school in London. And I've always loved physical performance. And the circus, it's always occurred to me that you start with a whole lot of emotion built into it, fear on the part of the audience, fear, laughter, all their expectations about circus. And it's a great theatrical turn that's never been used. So I said to them that I'd work with them, but I wanted to make theatre, not circus. And we made 3 shows. And I love all of them. But because they were so green, I was able to just do what I wanted to with these people, which was just one of the most exciting things ever. So I chose directors, designers, the entire teams. I had relationships, obviously, already with theatres and producers and presenters all over the world who trusted me and took them and presented them and put them on. And we had probably the most exciting 7 years of my career on some levels, because I could bring all of those skills of encountering ideas, thinking about ideas, bringing people together, collaborating to make work happen. And years and years ago, when I first started working in the UK, I worked for a women's physical theatre company called Cunning Stunts, and they're very political. And the woman who was sort of the leading creative person within that was sitting there one day, and she said, because in the old days we used to be called administrators, and she looked at me and she said, "You're not an administrator. I'll tell you what you are. You are an engineer of the imagination." In other words, you're taking all these different elements and putting them together to make something exciting happen in front of an audience, and exciting happen between artists. And I think that notion has led me through really 30 really exciting years of making, collaborating. But collaborating for me is at the heart, and it's not me putting the collaborators together as so much as me being able to participate in the expanding and delivering of those ideas. That's what spins my wheels, and that's what I think for me is the role of the producer. It's different for different people, and I do think that there's a slight confusion sometimes in the mind of the artist about who's really running it. But that's what it is for me. And it's, you've got to spend a lot of time I would say 80%, maybe even 90% of your time pushing bits of paper around, begging for money, talking to people who don't get it, who ought to get it, blah, blah, blah. But the 10% is such a buzz that you keep doing it.
Okay, thank you. Engineers of imagination, I have to put it down, maybe it's just for my...
It was, I just thought, yeah, okay, that'll do me. That's what I do.
Okay, when you speak, I can feel that you are a creative producer.
I'm not a creative producer. Do you know what? I really don't like that term.
Okay.
Because I feel like if you're a producer, you are a creative person.
Okay, yes.
You're not a manager.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a tautology.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you work in Hollywood, in this huge Hollywood company, you are probably not that creative. You are really
You're just
a man with a purse or woman with a purse,
Yeah.
Logistics.
No. But I do think that one of the big things about the producer label is that you're bringing ideas. You're not just bringing money, structure, logistics, blah-de-blah. Yeah, that's part of it, of what you do. And you might have a team doing that all around you. But you are bringing a vision, it's a leadership role and it's a collaborative role with all the other creatives and people who are involved in that production.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, would you agree that you are bringing ideas rather than not only money, it's just...
Yeah, but also, sometimes it happened to me, I really feel very close to this notion. Sometimes I feel that my work is about, somehow... being part and partly creating a magnetic field of people with their also conflicting desires and just see what comes out. So it's a feeling, it's a vision that I feel close. And sometimes it happened also with the same collaboration during the year to totally twist the type of collaboration. For example, the piece we are here with, Save the Last Dance for Me, actually I commissioned it as an artistic director of a festival, and even if Alessandro is an artist I was working with, so it's in that situation there was another producer working with company and I was from the side of the festival somehow, but for me it didn't change anything. Because I feel I curate when I work with Alessandro and I feel I produce when I work at Sant'Arcangelo Festival. So for me this, it's just that sometimes also I feel difficult to find definitions. I just do it.
But it moves around, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes I think, don't speak to me. I do not want to hear your problems. And other times I feel like, okay, let's all just sit down and talk. So one moves around on those levels of kind of management. And also I think as experienced producers, we see problems coming down the line before other people maybe even sense them there, and we create a few diversions here and there so that people go off down different roads so we don't hit that rock. But sometimes we do. When I met Robin Jerome from Strybos and Rijswijk, I was asked by the Norfolk and Norwich Festival to come and work with them to produce a pilot for their Walk With Me ad. And we worked with a writer. And as soon as I met them, I knew that we were going to know each other for a long time. It was just, okay, we get it. But we made this thing, this 15-minute pilot. But I knew from the very beginning as well that I didn't think it would work because some of the elements were wrong. Not them, they're perfect. But I just think the thinking behind it was wrong. And so sometimes when you come in as a producer working on somebody else's ideas, I don't feel sometimes that I have them, well, I do have the muscle, but it's not right for me to say, hey, listen, let's dump this idea and do this one, which is a frustrating position to be in. But as soon as we met each other, there was a sort of click in the personalities. And so we did that. We didn't see each other for several years. And then I was doing something for the Lake District in England. They were being made a UNESCO place of heritage or something. And I suddenly thought, these are the guys. and we started to work together again on that. So you know, sometimes our work is from really different places and for really different reasons. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so if somebody is taking notes, we have engineers of imagination and magnetic fields, like you said. I like this metaphor as well, you know, like especially one of the most interesting things is to decide if we put this guy and this artist, you know, together, like what will happen. Usually the tragedy will happen, but sometimes it's really something like blows out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also
Paulina.
thinking that about this creator and the producer, because for me it's maybe also probably the same thing. Even when I'm the scenographer, I am the creator, and I think that the relationship with the idea of the festival comes from that you are the creator, and since we are producing the festival, we have the idea of the festival, and it's our idea, like with the colleague, and then we are looking for the house, like we deciding on the house, and also we always are thinking. Who artists like will come, like we are thinking if it fits to this today, or what's the idea what's the concept of this year. For example, last year we had the idea to have the artists from the different field coming to the same house. Like we wanted to have something non-traditional, something really traditional, and coming to non-traditional place and doing something. So I think that is always like creating, and also I didn't say, but I am also, but like as a teacher, I have worked and I have some experience with this, and I'm just remembering from that studies like about the creativity, that the creativity needs some borders, like some problem. Let's say it like if you say that you have only this pencil and this paper and do something, then it's great, like helps for creativity than saying do anything what you want. And I think that our relationship with the artist is something like this. Like we are saying this house, you know, this time, and we are agreeing on the budget and everything, and even of the audience, how many people should fit to the performance or something. And yeah, so I think that we have kind of this collaboration, like we are doing a lot of creativity in that, and also like giving this kind of borders for the artists for them. And also I think with our idea of the festival, even when we started, I think it's not so many immersive and site-specific theater projects were in Lithuania till then, and maybe it's still not so many of them. And one of the idea was like having the place and space where for Lithuanians to do something, and also to see something, like inviting the artists from I don't know, from abroad, from Finland or somewhere, and showing what is the site specific, and not just showing, but really letting them to feel what it is and to participate it. And even I'm now thinking that the last festival we even did the performance together with the colleague, and now we are the producers, and at the same time we are the directors and the scenographers. So it's really comes being in one.
Yeah. The very fact of finding the house that will host for that year is already the major creative idea, the basis for all the artists.
So. Even, for example, this year we are doing in the fifth form, so it's like already like getting the direction for the artist. What about could be the performance or something? So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a beautiful idea. I love it.
Martina, Ugne, we are coming for you, but just a moment. Since the creative producer, or just the producer, has to deal both with the artistic ideas and with financial management, so do the math and so communicate with artists and funds, you know, also with work in both development, production and distribution, you know, and marketing. It looks like he or she has to be a very intelligent person, so, you know, has to know everything, do the math, communicate, you know the techniques, etc. So let me ask you all, what is your education backgrounds in education? And a question to Martina and Ugne, based on your experiences so far, what would be a good study program then for theater managers? What should it include, do you think, based on what you have already done in this practice that you were participating in? I mean, for example, do you need theater practice? Do you need to know how to act? Oh, how to perform? Like, if you speak to an actor, and you need him to play in Brechtian style, like, so we have to know what it is, right? What is Brecht? So, do you need that knowledge? Or technologies, how artificial intelligence works? What are the programs of artificial intelligence if you want to use those? Or contemporary performing arts aesthetics, like what is now happening in the world of contemporary theater? What do you think, is that important? And the general question, which all comes to, is how does one become a producer? Okay, we'll start with you.
Okay, so it is a difficult question. I think I personally finished Vilnius University Creative Communication, and me with my friends, sometimes we call it horizontal studies. It's like you learn a lot of things, but not really in depth. So when the project comes, you think, yeah, I know a little about the theater, but is it enough? So I would say the most important thing is motivation, and you anyways, I think, do a lot of research before a certain project comes. For example, I'm doing now a project based on abortion, testimonies and the stories and laws in different countries. So of course I didn't know a lot about it, but I read a lot, and now I feel like I'm comfortable to talk about it and to work with this topic. So thinking of what I would add to some university or education program, I think that this concept is pretty good to know, at least to experience all of the arts. Also, a lot of importance has to be paid to accounting, I would say, and writing some forms which nobody likes, but it's really important for a producer to word it very specific, short, clear, and in order to attract funds and etc. And also adding something to the topic before, I feel like producer has to find balance in the project and control it, and influences in a way that you cannot really see sometimes, as everybody mentioned, bringing someone together and finding new ways. But also for me, for example, it depends on the relationship with the particular artist you're working with, and I'm more of a spectator, which gives insights after. For example, the creative team can talk about the ideas and other stuff, but as I'm spectating it from a side, maybe I have different ideas to offer and opinions to say, which might help later on. So, yeah.
Okay.
My background is fashion engineering, also innovation management and entrepreneurship. So to my project, Sleep Festival, I was looking one startup, and I was thinking how to manage everything, how to find sponsors and everything. And I think the most important thing what you have to learn, how to make a team who trust you, who believe in your vision. And I think producer is like a kid who connects dots between artists, sponsors, partners, and he knows the vision, but how must look like the paint. So I think you have to work with your idea, because if it can be another person's idea, but you wouldn't believe it in it, I think producer must believe in his vision. So maybe it's all about team management, about leadership, all that thing.
Okay. The general, social skills like management,
yes.
leadership,
Yeah.
that you have to know. Other things like Brecht, you can
Yeah, you can find the teammates.
somebody else
Yeah.
to do that. Okay. So, what do you think? To what extent it is important for producer to understand the techniques of a particular art, for example, in production? Like, do you need to know it? Especially, it's a question for Dee, whose activities cover different fields, like you said, film and dance and festivals and performing arts. So
I think, I mean, I stumbled into the arts. So I was at university studying to be a biochemist, and this is stupid. The council for the university student thing came out, and there were no women on the council. It was only men, and I sort of got very angry about this. And so I said, well, it's some vacant positions here. Why don't you stand for one of them? And one was education, and I know nothing about education. I'm very ignorant. And the other one was cultural affairs, and I knew even less than that. But I thought I could probably swing that one. So I went and talked to the outgoing cultural affairs officer, and he briefed me, and I got the job, which was pretty mad, because the only club I belonged to on campus was the squash club. But one of the things I had to do was handle a program from the national student body. And this is where the experimental theatre company came to town. And I saw that show, and I walked into their rehearsal. I thought, what are they doing? You know, it was Grotowski based, so it was all really sort of physical and quite grotesque. But that was it. And at the end of that year, I was offered a job by the national student body to say, do you want to come do this? So I sort of fell into it. And I would say that over the years, and I often say this to the artists that I'm working with, is that I'm a professional audience. When I first came to London, I once counted them, there were 73 off West End theatres, fringe theatres, listed in Time Out, which was the main listing, 73. And you could go and see a show for £2 or £5 or something like that. So I was out 5 nights a week just drinking this stuff in. And I didn't necessarily like everything I saw, but I was just, when I look back on it, just eating this stuff. And it really excited me, and I'd hang out with the artists and start talking to them, and I was working in the arts already when I left New Zealand. So I think the biggest, most valuable thing I can bring, really, in a way, is sort of what you're saying. When we're in the first sort of major rehearsals and runs of the show, or any show, is being able to say to people, I don't think that works. Carefully. You know, or maybe we need to do this, or sometimes people come to me and say, well, what, there's something wrong here and we don't know what it is. Or sometimes when I read a script, I think that the end is at the beginning, and so I have quite big inputs to people, and I don't know anything about Brechtian, well, I do a bit now, but it was kind of instinctive, but it was somebody who watched a lot of stuff. And a lot of artists don't watch a lot of stuff, which really shocks me. I worked with a director for 8 years, a guy called Pete Brooks. He's a genius. I loved working with him. We made amazing shows in Bologna. And worked a lot in Italy, and had a great time. But I would say to him sometimes, I remember one time in particular sitting down with him and saying, okay, this show's looking really good, but all of this is wrong here. This bit has to go here, this bit has to go there, that has to be cut. And he went, I will do it next week. And I went, no, I think we should do it tonight before we open tomorrow. So, of course, I was the most hated person in the neighbourhood, and all the crew had to work all night, and we went up an hour late. But that show went all around the world. And I don't know where my chutzpah came to sort of say to people, no, it doesn't work like that, it needs to work like this. But it was really clear to me, and that sort of came from instinct and seeing a huge amount of work, I think, and seeing what works. And that was sort of in the 80s and 90s. We were always going all over Europe. There were all these sort of cool experimental festivals all over the place, you know, we were all whizzing around to them and having a fabulous time. But I learned a lot from that about how things are made and what the rhythm and the vibe is. And, you know, because I was going to be a biochemist, I'm really good with numbers. So, you know, budgets are really easy. I've always got the budget in my head up to about plus or minus 10%, whether it's $1 million or 100,000 or whatever. It's there, you know, and people say, how's this going? And I go, I think we're at about, you know, 65,000 or something, or 650,000, you know, and I'm pretty right. But so it's kind of all in there. But actually, the thing that's motivating me to kind of keep all this going is the excitement of seeing what's going to happen at the end. Whether it's as an individual producer or a collaborator or an idea that somebody's brought to me or whatever, it is just a thrilling thing and a privilege to be involved. This is my job.
Yeah.
You know, I do this, I've done it for 40 plus years, and it's great. And I'm fully engaged in it.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought it up, that so the producer has to see everything, you know. And I'm happy that you said that not me, that a lot of artists do not see a lot of things. So the producers have to do that.
The guy I was talking about, we made all these great shows, took them all over. We're still making fantastic work. Don't want to work with him, but I'm happy to go and see all the shows. You know, he doesn't go and see work.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. He still makes great shows, but I don't get it. You know, I really don't.
Okay.
I don't know about your guy, but.
So this is the basis for producers, not the university that you've studied maybe 40 years ago, but it's actually what you do on everyday basis. See a lot of performances.
I teach at universities now. You know, I taught for 6 years at City University in London. It was called Major Event Management. So it covered, you know, festivals or individual projects or whatever, teaching people about it. And my metaphor was always, okay, so imagine you're going to have a dinner party. Our first world thing. But imagine you're going to have a dinner party. So you have to put all these elements together to make creative decisions, what you're going to eat. You have to make casting decisions, where you're going to get it from, etc., etc. So people can really get into that and follow that idea. But for me, it's not just kind of cooking a meal and sitting people down. It's the fun you bring to that. It's the depth you bring to that. It's the idea you bring to it. What's at the heart of it? You reckon?
Lisa, could you tell us about your education background and what is the...
I studied arts history, and I would never ever imagined to work in performing arts. I was not even a spectator at the time, so it happened totally by chance, because my friends were training as actors, and in this company they run a festival, they need a help, so it started. And when I went for the first time to this Sant'Arcangelo festival in Italy as a spectator, a few months after I started to work in theater, like I had this mind-blowing experience saying, okay, I didn't imagine a theater, dance, whatever you want to call it, was this, but I want to be there. So, so I am autodidact in terms of whatever I do, some things that I think were useful over the years were like very simply, for example, I'm not very good in numbers at all. So like, okay,
get somebody to do it for you.
That's exactly. Don't go there when something gets easier for someone else. And then I think I totally agree with this, for me, like my upgrading, learning masters are like being here, but especially how you observe and listen while you are here, because it's about the other project you can see. But for me, like the first thing when I experience an art project, it's also like to pose myself a lot of questions in terms of the spectators. Where do they come from? How they were engaged? How do they react? I really start to write an imaginary novel in my mind and the venue. And this like touring, and this I think it was very helpful for me when then I had to run a festival, to have traveled a lot with the same work in different contexts. Because So I think it is about how you position yourself and be able working to really learn through discussions, through visions, through encounters. Like I'm learning a lot now from what you are sharing. So but I think it happens if you put yourself in an active listener, active viewer position, and it doesn't always happen. And then another thing that for me it's like a training tool. It's you called it instinct. I call it intuition. I think it's the same thing. Like it was not easy at the beginning. Sometimes it's not even now, but to really acknowledge for myself that I really believe it's a knowledge tool. Yeah. And sometimes I don't know where this voice comes from, but I learned over the years that it's very important to listen to her. And I went even further because in some projects, in some curatorial project I did, I even used divinatory practices to get in touch with the not rational form of knowledge, which I consider form of knowledge, and I think it's also...
What practices, I'm sorry?
Divinatory, like tarot reading, things like this.
Oh, those
it's not at all in the things like, okay, you will meet someone tall with green eyes tomorrow. No. It's about, when I worked in Sant'Arcangelo, we worked with an artist, Francesca Grilli, and she works with divinatory practices in her work. And she gave for me and the other director every year a tarot reading on the festival. So it was not, you have to invite me for 10 years. But there were some issues that were extremely precious and inspiring for how to develop the project. So, I think it has also to do with forms of knowledge that historically have been oppressed. For me, it's also very linked to feminism, or how I perceive it. So, I did training projects, but for me, it's the source of inspiration and learning. It's how you position your spirit and how also you are able to learn, also from unconventional sources sometimes.
I think instinct is just about 90% of my work, actually, because you are making decisions, and I think it's okay to use all different kinds of processes because you have to make decisions, and there's no right or wrong decision. I mean, there are, but on a journey, you have to make decisions, and you make this decision, you go that way, make this decision, you go that way, but they're all valid, and they all present you things that need to be solved and resolved. But that's kind of part of the fun of it, of thinking what happens if we put these people in a room. That's how I met Robin Jeroen, and actually last summer we were working in Italy. I forget the name of the place, and we were sitting having dinner, and Rob turned around to me and he said, "So what show are you going to make with us?" And I nearly fell off my chair, because it's very rare that an artist says that to you. They're usually saying, "I want to do this. Can you help me do this?" And most of that work I don't do. I just say, "Well, I'll give you a couple of mentoring sessions, but it's not the project for me." It's the collaboration, It's when somebody sits down and says, "Can I talk to you about this?" that I then become engaged. I don't think it's ego. I like to think it's instinct. It's probably a bit of both. But actually, it's very, very rare for an artist, somebody who's considered an artist, and somebody's a producer, to say, "What are you going to make with us?" For once, I had nothing to say. But that's what we do. We do it through divinity and instinct and trust and trusting our judgment.
I think there is something also there in picking up that is linked to instinct and intuition, to picking up when something happens. The idea of the project we are here in tour with came from an hairdresser Like in this festival in Sant'Arcangelo, there is this hairdresser. We always went with my colleague before the press conference of the festival, and Vito. He is a very existential person, quite depressed, who hates Emilia-Romagna, the region, and everything that is there. So once, after hearing every time lamentation, we said like, okay, Vito, there will be one thing you like of Emilia-Romagna, and he came out with, yes, polka chinata. Never heard of. So first thing, watching the videos, and then, that's cool. And then we went with Alessandro to see an exhibition. He met the master of polka chinata. He had this idea of the transmission project and the extinction of the dance. And basically the idea was too good to let it go, so we decided to go through. But, you know, sometimes it's also about, when I say active listener, it's about this, here there is something. And what I like is that it can happen really in the most unexpected situations. No? Yeah. Sure. You are real, now I realized 10 minutes before the press conference.
This is my idea, by the way.
Last thing, when I stop, I also think it's an additive work. Personally, I think it's a work that can create addiction. Because there is this adrenaline, this moving, this emotion, but for me, it's highly addictive.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I agree. And at the end of every festival or huge project, I go, I'm never doing this game. If I say I'm going to do this game, lock me in a room. You know? And then somebody come along and say, well, how about, like Rob and Irene, like, come and work with us. You don't have to do very much.
Yeah, it doesn't sound well when it sounds like this.
No, we don't want you to do any of that. We want you to just think about this stuff for us, you know, which is another reason why I nearly fell off my chair when he said, what are you going to make with us? But stuff comes through the ether. I mean, this all might sound very sort of cosmic and stuff, but we are, I think you as a person, you as a producer, are part of the process. You're part of the formula. Like you had the fabulous idea, which I would love to pinch, of having a festival that was based in a house. I think that's genius. I really think it's beautiful. You know, I've been thinking about it ever since you said it. You know, so it's who you are. It's what you do. It's what you bring to the party. Red wine, white wine. You know, it's all in your bones. A little bit of skill. But, you know.
I happen to know something about your education, Paulina, but please, they do not know that.
So my background, I have studied, as I already said, in the art academy, the scenography, and also thinking now still, I was also listening to you, that, for example, math was the most, I loved the most this lesson, for example, in school, and also in scenography, we have to create the decision, like the visual of the performance, but we also have to know how to organize the producing, like making everything, how we have to really count a lot of things and measure a lot of things, and it really needs a math knowledge as well. So I think that the producing has this kind of the same, you know, thing, like you have to create, but also have to count, and I like numbers. It also, of course, the studies in academy doesn't help a lot with numbers, but still the field I was learning here, it was quite close, I think, with this. And I think that for me is good that I have not only the knowledges in the scenography on the art academy, but also I was doing as a scenography from, I think, from the second year of studies, so even from the first years of studies, and I was in the was my last year in the school when I was starting organizing the concerts in the Kaunas theater, so I already had the experience organizing things and counting and really just looking to the papers and thinking who is next artist in the program. And then I came to the art academy, so I had this, I always was like between this organizing and creating things, and I think for me it really helps that I had the experience, like from making dolls and puppets and costumes and everything, and I know how to make it, like how from the first step. And even I have and I was in the creative team, yes, just only as a creative. And also I always saw this all things from the producing, from the managing view. So I think it really helps all experience, even for each of us, not even what we have studied, but also what we have done, what classes we have, had or something. And also I have studied later in the industry, creative industry in Magnus University, and one another master, but it's not so important in producing. But but I think that everything, the experience in life and experience in studies always helps to do what you are doing, and to know really what means to make the decoration, what means to make even the performance only as the director, for example, and then to be also in this producer position. So and as they said, also the leadership and everything is also very important in this producing thing. But for me personally, I think it really helps that I know, I have been in more or less in each part, not acting, but otherwise in each part I have been, and I have the experience in that. So I think it really helps.
Okay, thank you. So far the most unexpected suggestion was tarot reading. I'm thinking of offering to the dean of my faculty, to include a free course on tarot reading for young producers.
With pleasure.
Okay, guys, by the way, I'm looking also at you now, and if you have some questions, we have some time left, you can just raise your hands, okay? Good. No hands so far, so, I have just one more question about going back to creative ideas and the producers that shape the whole field through their creative ideas. How do you come up with the idea? Now, we know a few techniques already, but maybe you could share a little about what are your techniques of how the ideas are born? I mean, when we speak about different industries, so, they always, if you are making refrigerators, you would have a department called Research and Development, R&D, right? So you're doing research before you produce anything. Now, I know they do some research in film industry, but I've never heard that some theater producers would do a research of what does the audience want actually, or they do, I don't know. So are you doing any research, or how do you know what the audience needs? So is your intuition relates to audience, or is it the intuition what the audience wants? Do you think about that? Is it important? So let's start with where your ideas are coming from, and then let's.
So my ideas comes from, I don't know, maybe researching, from reading. You bring a lot of information to your mind, and then maybe you discuss everything with your teammates, your friends, and somehow one day you will dream about it. I don't know how it came out, but you need a lot of information from different fields, a lot of ideas, a lot of, I don't know, maybe people who is talking in bus or something, you hear something, sometimes you have to go out from your comfort zone, from your head, somewhere else, just to find new ideas. So,
Okay.
to make something different.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like what also Lisa mentioned, active listening, like surroundings, everything, and it comes up eventually. And about the audience that you mentioned, I think it is important to think about who would be interested in this play and who is the targeted audience. And that was also what we learned in our producers education program. But also you have to combine the art of like piece of art that you, or theater play that you want to portray. So somehow combine and mix all these things in like balance. Yeah, but it's important to think about it, about the audience and the character, as also Lisa mentioned, like to imagine who are these people that you're making this project to.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a very difficult question, who the audience. In England, when you fill out an Arts Council form, you have to say for your marketing bit, you know, who the audience is and where they come from, blah, 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 blah. And then when I produced this film, it was a feature-length artist documentary. I applied for money from the film board, and I always wondered why they made so many rubbish films. And in this form, there was nowhere, anywhere in this form where you were applying for money, about who the audience was, who you think, as the maker, producer, whatever, might come and see the film. And these questions about who the audience was had plagued me for years and annoyed me. I don't know, I'm going to make something really good and people are going to come. But actually, you do learn to think about those things, and they are in your mind. And I was so shocked that in the film industry, I mean, they were giving out grants much bigger than we get in performance, you know, like £60,000 and £100,000. They're giving out millions, you know, not to us. But the fact that they didn't say, who do you think might come and see your film? I suddenly thought, that's why I see all these stupid films that never really get an audience, to get 5 people in a cinema in Croydon or somewhere. It's because they weren't thinking about the audience, and it is really important. And I think that over the years we learn about who likes what we do, and we learn about who they are. And one of the things that always excited me was the possibility that, I saw a piece of theatre that changed my life completely. And that possibility is real for me. I'm an optimist, of course, and that's quite an important thing you need to be as a producer, an optimist, would you say? Yeah. But because it changed my life, somewhere in the back of my mind, I think I'm going to make a piece of theatre that's going to start a revolution or something. I'm going to make a piece of performance work that'll make people go home and think, yeah, I agree, or I'm going to do that, or something. So it's sort of in there, and it's been put there really by forms, but also by, I think, that formative experience for myself of thinking, people do this for a living. People are going around the world and putting on these magical performances. And I didn't even know what they were talking about half the time, but it just seemed incredibly beautiful and exciting. And that inspired me to reach out. It's a bit arrogant, really, but I do work from that position more, that I think the quality of what we together will make, people will come.
Okay, speaking about audience, we have a question from the audience. So.
Yeah, I have one. So I heard that you were talking about your job with such passion and with such strong love, but I don't believe it's your final stop. Like, I don't feel like this. Can you share with me what you're thinking about in the future, what other fields you're interested in and want to engage? Or I'm just falling down the cliffs and I'm not right at all. Like, it's the perfect spot you want to live in. Oh.
Well, I am excited by the job that I do, obviously. And I think that's helpful. But I also get a kick out of things going well in all aspects, that the audience turn up and the stuff's there that everybody needs to do their job. It's the engineer, the imagination bit comes along. But I do feel that it's hard work being a producer, and you get a lot of stuff coming at you, and it's not always good. It is hard work. So I think you do need quite a good bit of passion to get you through it. The idea of making art to me is not about exploring the soul. I think that's something that comes from it. I think we're really lucky to work in these areas where we are allowed to talk about feelings and ideas. But I do think you know it's a hard job. You're dealing with not just with your own feelings and emotion. You're only one person of maybe 10 or 20 or 30. How many people have you got working on the festival at the moment?
With volunteers around 50.
There you go. So you're holding together a group of 50 people and directing them to deliver this festival or this one thing. And it's not easy. I think it takes a lot of focus. But if you feel good about what you do, that helps. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
I have one question. Coming back to audience.
Yes.
It's a bit of provocation.
Okay.
Because I believe in trust. I mean, trust between the producer, artist, and the audience. I hate the conversations. I will be very direct.
Yeah.
I hate when producers or artists talk and think what people who live outside the big cities they have to adapt something. They have to bring maybe lighter productions. Maybe we can't show the same shows like we show in festivals. We cannot show in the regions where people don't have experience. For example, what do you think about it? How to start the journey with newcomers and new audience when you work on contemporary performing arts? Because we have very nice journey now with the festival, and we started with very rough performing arts from very beginning in 2019, with outdoor shows from Switzerland, super contemporary, and we brought in 2 really new places outside the city without any preparation and introduction to audience what's going to happen. We just said, we trust you, it's okay not to understand. This is my point to work with audience. But what do you think about the way to work with audience in general? Because my opinion, it's really like blind trust.
Yeah.
And always you risky. Of course, it's a huge risk, and some people can tune out. But I believe in this very open conversation and accepting the bad comments and having direct conversation between artists and audience. And they still have these battles in my head, and I have a live battles with some of my colleagues who really strongly believes that we have to take this long journey and to adapt, to do some adaptations, because some people won't be able to understand some stuff. But also it goes to the curators and festival directors and artistic directors who make decision what to bring. Because it's like, it's also producer work, because I work as a producer, I work as a festival director, I work as a leader of a culture field, but I have this, all these talks and conversations in my head, talking with festival directors when people saying, no, it's not for my audience. What does it mean it's not for my audience, So I just want to hear your thoughts about it, and how to work with new audience. What does it mean to trust? What does it mean to go and to present the work? What kind of, homeworks we have to do before, and what the young producer should know and expect, some tips and experience.
I've never changed a show, ever, except, having said that, if I'm going to a country, if it's in a country where their culture does not like, for example, people touching each other or whatever, which is hard in circus, I can tell you that much. But I've never, ever changed a show because tonight we're in London and tomorrow we're in Taunton, which is, I don't know, a country town. I would never do that. I think that's patronising. I totally respect the audiences. But sometimes when we're going to places with different shows, we might do workshops with young people, in particular, in areas that we think the themes might speak to them. And then they and their families get invited to see those shows. So that is sort of grooming and helping an audience in some way. But it's also a way of getting people into the theatre who might never have been to the theatre before. But what they see when they get there should not be edited or censored. Because, I respect our audiences. I don't know how you feel, but I don't do that.
Like, I resonate a lot with what you are saying, because when I am from the artist's point of view, like it happened me very often that someone said, my audience is not ready for that. And this is something really that I really don't appreciate, because I think that's your job. To make
them ready.
Because like when I started this job, for example, the first piece Alessandro did, the first group piece with Folks, which has been now in tour for 10 years, 100 gigs all over the world. We presented it in Milano one night, okay? And Milano is a city with a lot of inhabitants, but that's because the festival who makes this type of program had small resources and this type of audience. And then after 2 weeks, we arrived in Aix-en-Provence in France, where you don't see a single person during the day, and you realize that you have 2 gigs with 300 person every night, and it's the same show. So, I think that, starting from your question, if I work producing an artwork, I work the other way around. Like, okay, this is the idea, this is the thing, I will find the context for it, not the other way. But when I worked as a festival director, for me, maybe the most passionate thing was to try to enlarge how much as possible in terms of number and quality the number of spectators who could experience an art project. And this, it took risk, but it ever worked. Of course, I had to balance the energy. Like, okay, this year there is this show, usually in Sant'Arcangelo they do 3 gigs, but come on, with this type of work we could stretch it to 10 gigs. And for Italian artists with this type of work, to have 10 days, it means basically you build the work. Because you know that doing it changes, no? And so in this time, and there is, but it's the result of a complex type of thinking. Like, okay, 10 days, it can, for example, arouse the word of mouth, which is the best seller ever, no? Mm-hmm. So, for real, we can have the citizen of Sant'Arcangelo. Maybe I wouldn't have done with another work. So I think it's part of the curating, it's part of the communication. I think the price of a ticket is the biggest curatorial choice you can do. Once we decided something that we had to fight for months with the whole staff because they didn't believe it. So it's also about how you can make a shared decision with all the staff believing in it and balancing the energies. So we decided the last year, we will open the festival with a site-specific project in a swimming pool, half an hour out of the village, for 2,000 people by unknown artists in Italy. But we could do it because it was a choreography, experimental, very radical, but we involved, for example, synchronized swimmers. We could build a tale around this, okay? But we had and the ticket price, you don't know how many meetings we did, how many, we decided to risk with this. But for me, the emotion of entering for 3 days with swimming pool, with 2,000 people that were clearly not the Sant'Arcangelo arty crowd spectators, but that were very aware of experiencing an art with quality, with attention. It's not about, we put on a beach, numbers to send to the ministry. No, it's about how you can make more visible, also unexpected encounters with radical work, but for many people.
So the price was too low or too high?
No, the price was quite low, but we had a bus. So then we raised a bit the ticket, but the bus was, but it worked. it worked. There were many also invited people. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it was not the box we didn't do the festival with a box income of the, but with a festival that is publicly funding, you can do this.
Yeah.
I think we all should do this.
That's the job, isn't it? It's like showing new things and giving people new experiences.
Same situation here. Like many people asking why the tickets are so cheap to some performances which are world premiere or super expensive to bring, like you saw silo, standing, building tent, residency for 2 weeks, and a signal opera, and other shows. And for us, it was decision to make it open and accessible as much as we can. And when we talk with audience, who became kind of regular audience, starting from 3 weeks ago, and now you see more and more the same people coming back, and they're talking, the prize also gave us a chance to see more and to bring more, relatives, because the prize allows us to do so. So it's also like you can put very expensive and you can sell it, but it means who's coming to see, because we want to reach very diverse audience.
I mean, the whole audience question is really challenging, I think, and always will be. I think in this area of work, and it's that question of somebody will come and say, well, what was that about? And I go, well, what do you think it was about? And they go, oh, it's okay. It's your movie. And that's what I like about experimental work and progressive work. It's how you soak it up through your skin, what you think about it. But it is very difficult because, in the funding system, there are people who want to say, okay, your audience is too white, or, your audience is too middle class, or blah, 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 blah. It's not that. If 5 people, 2 people, 1 person from a different sort of setting comes along and has a different experience and is excited by it, it's worth doing. It's really, but, winning that battle, it's not easy.
No. But for example, the most impactful audience development project we did in Sant'Arcangelo for me was to create a disco club.
Yeah.
I mean, we were really attacked for this because first of all, Emilia-Romagna is a region where there is a tradition of clubbing, and also of clubbing mixing, like Romeo Castellucci was preparing the night eve party for the main discos on the Riviera. So there is also a tradition of, high experimentation there. So like the first edition we did, we bought a circus tent, we put it in a Claire in the Woods, and made an amazing music program for free from midnight until dawn. And we put in the communication of the festival, performing arts, music, party. And all Italian theater critics were horrified by these vandals who put the word party on. But in Bosco, this circus tent, for me, everybody who came there, knowing that this was part of the festival, okay, and maybe they didn't attend a theater work or a dance performance, but they could experience the music part of the festival, which anyway was curated for the festival. For me, they are spectators. And at the end of the 3 years, we could really see that the average age of local people were there were young local people who also experimented the festival. So sometimes, you can also be creative and
it is a huge thing about that. But I was the artistic director of a festival in Glasgow years and years ago. And they always had this opening, which was a particular theatre company from Scotland, and it was kind of rock and roll theatre, and they'd do something, quite didactic. And I went along, because I was a bit sort of arty, and I said, oh no, I'd like to commission this piece based on Oliver Sacks' Awakenings. And they go, what? And it was a trade union funded festival, and I went, no, it'll be really interesting. It was hugely controversial, that I was spending this money on this radical piece of performance, And it went on, you know, and it went on and on and on. And, you know, everybody said, we'll never work and we'll lose lots of money. And actually, we got just about 3% more house than the traditional kind of show that they'd always opened that festival with every year. And the next thing, all these people who were on my board, who were pretty conservative, to be polite, were all standing around in the bar, absolutely defending my right to put on work like that. But the best thing that somebody said to me was the person who ran this particular theatre company that always opened the festival. She came up to me in the bar after the opening night and said, "Di, that was incredible. It wasn't TV." And that, I just thought that was a great, you know, it was something they didn't expect to see, and people really liked it. And, you know, you just have to put it in front of people and tell people to have a taste of this. But it is it's that question, really, isn't it?
Okay, thank you. We are moving towards the end. I would like to give word for Paulina, maybe about audience, for example. Your house project and on the audience. That would be the last word, so take care. You know.
Actually, I was more thinking about the ideas where we're coming, the questions were before, and I was thinking that, like, I of course agree with the colleagues, but also thinking that the ideas coming from the process as well. I really like the Picasso who said something like that the motivation comes during the process, like, and I think that ideas come from the process, and it's really hard to say for me from where it comes. And if it's about the audience, I think that all this is, as the colleague said, that is the important. The communication thing, like the promotion thing, I think it's more how to do it. But what about the art? I think is the most important. That it would be the professional. It would be the good thing. Like it's not for the easier or simpler to understand or something, but it would be like just good as the art piece. And yeah.
And so, okay. Yeah. I would like to thank you so much for being here with us today. I think we should give them a round of applause.